Welcome, you're watching Vox News, your daily evening news with Rita Kamkumo. Our headlines today: South African President Cyril Ramaphosa urges African leaders to work together to develop a COVID-19 vaccine on the continent. Senegalese authorities dismantle a human trafficking network leading to the arrest of 87 young female migrants en route to the Middle East. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo apologizes to President Muhammadu Buhari over the demolition of the Nigerian embassy building in Accra.
Okay.
Our top story today: South African President Cyril Ramaphosa urged African leaders on Wednesday to work together to develop a COVID-19 vaccine on the continent. The head of state emphasized the need to start planning for the development and distribution of an effective, safe and affordable vaccine for all Africans without further delay at the virtual conference on Africa's leadership role in COVID-19 vaccine development and access. The African Union chairman advocated for vaccine manufacturing on the continent and encouraged African leaders to work towards the implementation of a more fair and responsive medical system. The president's words come as his country rolled out on Wednesday Africa's first human COVID-19 vaccine trial. The extensive trial of the vaccine developed by the Oxford Jenner Institute at Oxford University is being conducted in the United Kingdom, where it has already been tested on more than 7,000 people. Brazil and South Africa considered to be the epicenter of the disease on the continent, with over 100,000 confirmed coronavirus cases recorded in the country since the beginning of the pandemic. South Africa plans to vaccinate 2,000 volunteers.
I feel a little bit scared, but I want to know what's going on with this vaccine so that I can tell my friends and others what's going on in this study.
The vaccine trial is led by global leader in vaccine development and Wits University, Professor Shabir Mahdi, who explains that before developing an efficient and safe vaccine, trials have to take place in many different settings.
These 8 participants form part of what is known as Group 1, which is a group where it's a small group of 50 individuals where we're trying to understand 2 important issues. The first issue is the safety of the vaccine, especially in terms of what will be common side effects, and the second issue is how well the body mounts an immune response against the vaccine. Once there's about 60% of the population that have developed immunity, we expect that effective reproductive rate to drop to under 1. It doesn't mean the virus is going to go away, but once there's 60% of the population, especially the adult population, that becomes immune, we expect that effective reproductive rate to go to under 1, which basically means the virus will still be around, it will still circulate, but its chain of transmission has been interrupted, which is important.
Should the trials be successful in the country, South Africa should be given access to the vaccine at an affordable price and not lose out to richer countries amid the global coronavirus pandemic. While scientists say that Africans must participate in COVID-19 vaccine trials to find a universal vaccine, critics argue the history of Western exploitation of the continent and dramatic unethical drug trials cases which took place in the past as a reason not to participate. While the coronavirus pandemic continues to wreak havoc in South Africa, Finance Minister Taitu Mboweni said in Parliament on Wednesday that the country's economy is expected to shrink by 7.2% in 2020 as a result of the pandemic. The Finance Minister said it will be the worst contraction in nearly 90 years, arguing that the ongoing pandemic had pushed the country's budget deficit, including debt servicing costs, to a record of over 2 trillion rands. The continent's most industrialized economy had already entered into recession in the final quarter of 2019 before the pandemic outbreak, which prompted President Cyril Ramaphosa to impose a strict lockdown to stem its progression. The minister warned that all citizens needed to play their part in the economic recovery to avoid the country facing bankruptcy. In Senegal, the authorities announced on Wednesday that they had dismantled a network specialized in the sending of young sub-Saharan women to the Middle East. After 20-day surveillance, the police arrested 87 Sierra Leonean migrants in Dakar on Monday, including 2 people suspected of having organized the trafficking. The alleged leaders of the network were initially arrested on the 5th of June in Senegal. The young women, whose age was not specified, had arrived in Senegal by road through Guinean territory. Once in Senegal, the criminals organized the trips by small groups to the countries of the Middle East with the complicity of some local residents, according to the police. In Senegal, the authorities announced on Wednesday that President Macky Sall had entered a preventive 2-week quarantine as of Wednesday after coming into contact with a coronavirus positive case. His office added that the president has tested negative for the virus. The president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, apologized on Tuesday to Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari over the demolition of a Nigerian embassy residential building in Accra. President Akufo-Addo ordered a probe into the incident and indicated that a few suspects have been arrested and will be charged. This statement comes after Nigeria's foreign minister summoned on Monday Ghana's envoy in Abuja to ask for an explanation and for the Ghanaian authorities to investigate the incident that occurred last Friday. In Ethiopia, the Electoral Commission opposed a plan by the Northern Tigray region on Wednesday to hold regional elections in August despite the coronavirus pandemic, a decision which is likely to aggravate tensions between the governing party of the area and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government. The poll body argued safety reasons as the pandemic is still ongoing, stating that the Tigray regional state has no legal basis for deciding to conduct a vote, as it is the only body that determines the electoral calendar or process. Its refusal comes after the parliament's highly criticized decision earlier this month to extend the mandates of regional and federal houses of representatives, which allowed Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to remain in power beyond his term, following the postponement of the parliamentary and provincial elections initially scheduled for August due to the coronavirus pandemic. In Ivory Coast, in the run-up to the presidential and legislative elections scheduled for October, the government announced on Wednesday the extension of the revision of the electoral list by a week until the 30th of June, as previously requested by the opposition. The revision of the electoral list began on the 10th of June and was supposed to close on Wednesday. However, the authorities noticed a sharp increase in the number of registered voters over the last few days as a result of the awareness campaigns that have been conducted in the country. About 5 million eligible Ivorians have yet to register, according to the Independent Electoral Commission. The government also announced a 1-year extension on the validity of national identity cards set to expire on the 30th of June. In Zambia, a new alleged corruption case is making the headlines. The police arrested Health Minister Chitalu Chilifuya on Wednesday and charged him over possession of property acquired using ill-gotten gains. The minister's arrest follows draft investigations the Anti-Corruption Commission has been conducting after they noticed he had amassed a fortune in no time. The health minister has been released on bail and is set to appear in court on the 9th of July.
These scars date back to 1947, a reminder of Rondrian Mamoun's life as a 20-year-old, forced into manual labour by the French colonial powers in Madagascar. That year, he refused to carry on working, and paid for it with 7 years in jail.
Every morning they made us go up the hill. Senegalese riflemen with the French kept guard and whipped us like we were zebus pulling a cart. They made us walk on all fours on rough ground, coming and going. It tore our skin. I still have scars on my knees and back. The Senegalese would say, "Do you give in?" And I'd say, "I'd rather die with my fallen brothers."
1947 marked the start of the near 2-year Malagasy uprising, one of the earliest anti-colonial revolts in the French colonies. The rebellion was brutally suppressed. Between 30 and 90,000 Malagasys died, either killed or perishing of hunger and cold after fleeing into the forests. Today, the pain from that period still echoes, even among the young.
There were traitors who betrayed the Malagasys. Some people hid in the forest. There were children, babies, pregnant women. It makes me so sad. The colonialists shot them and shoved them in holes. They buried them alive.
Madagascar would have to wait over a decade before eventually achieving independence on the 26th of June 1960. But for this historian, the island's need for foreign aid means it is not really free.
Plus encore qu'en 1960, nous sommes dépendants.
We are still dependent, now even more than in 1960, we are dependent.
de l'ancienne puissance colonisatrice.
In 1960, we were dependent on the former colonial power, France. Now we are still dependent not only on France, but also on big international finance organizations.
Organisations financières internationales.
Some tributes to French colonialism still stand on the island, but most have been removed. Up to the 1970s, a statue to the general who had abolished the monarchy on the island overlooked Independence Avenue. In its place today, there is a monument in honour of the original insurgents who began the fight for freedom.
Finally, on the football scene, despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, the South African government allowed its Premier League to resume on Wednesday, provided that clubs meet safety guidelines, which include testing and playing in a safe, sanitized environment. The continent's richest soccer league, the National First Division and the other leagues, were suspended since the introduction of a coronavirus lockdown in March. Although the government gave its green light for the resumption of training for the 16 Premiership clubs, a date has not yet been set. The championship is unlikely to finish by the recommended FIFA deadline of the 31st of July, and officials are expected to seek an extension. That's it for today. Thank you for watching Vox News.